ending, an event that can truly make or break a story. They could be some of the most emotionally charged powerhouses one can experience, or they could be a complete and utter betrayal that knows no bounds in terms of disappointment and anger. The weight of these endings can also depend on the hype it gets, and in the world of manga, One Piece feels like it will be the Kingdom Hearts 3 of shonen stories. A tale that spans several years, expands its worlds and characters with every step, has at least a dozen Screamin' Roger reactions. No way! And of course has to tie up all the loose ends to satisfy as many people as possible. Since it's no mystery that One Piece's end in this decade, that pressure to satisfy is certainly on. Everyone that has invested in this story has their own ideas on how One Piece should end. I mean, the basic guideline is that Luffy becomes Pirate King, Brook reunites with the Boons, or becomes a greater swordsman, blah blah blah. But the path to reach these dreams are the astounding part. Quite literally is where One Piece will be about the journey instead of the destination. But as we approach this final arc, what's going to happen? Well, that's exactly what I want to take a stab at. I want to go over 10 different scenarios that I personally want to see in this final arc, final war, or really just the ending of One Piece in general. I guarantee that my dream vision / headcanon / desires will not match yours. Everyone will have their own different viewpoints and their own expectations, so I ask that my ideas not be taken super seriously. This is going to be a very subjective video. Just wanted to get that disclaimer out there, because if I treated this like certain other top 10 videos, we would probably have something like this.
Hi guys, Match Wojo here, and welcome to the top 10 ways One Piece should end. That's right, I'm practically speaking for you. I don't need your opinions and debates, because this reeks of objectivity, doesn't it? I could claim to be subjective at the end of the video, but my tone and fucking title of my own video will imply something different, won't it? Huh? What was that? I could have easily avoided sounding like a pretentious all-knowing dick by taking the subjective route and simply put the word "my" in the video title so there wouldn't be any confusion? No, that's stupid, and my voice is too important for that. Everything I say, in my opinion, is correct. I have to sound as egotistical and clickbaity as possible because I gotta get those views. Anyway, be sure to comment and subscribe.
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing any of that. Regardless, it's as I just said. These are 10 moments that I want to see at the end of One Piece in no particular order, and hopefully not too obvious. I mean, you're not going to see this at number 1. Anyway, let's begin with number 10, the death of Rayleigh. Oh, how I've missed this. Now, just because I want a character dead doesn't mean I want them to go out in a horrific manner. I know I'm asking for the impossible in a shonen action adventure series that uses the concept of death as much as old Disney films use it to increase the orphan population, but when I say I want to see Rayleigh die, I want to see him exit the story with dignity, and most importantly, happiness. The man is certainly up there in age, but thanks to his feats and power, he can be on Old Muscle Men Monthly for the next 200 years without any competition. However, for this story, I feel like Rayleigh was an observer. He did far more as Luffy's personal trainer for the New World, but in the grand scheme, I always thought he was meant to, well, observe the world. Especially after learning the truth about everything on Laugh Tale and having the adventure of a lifetime. That being said though, he has taken on an interest in Luffy through Shanks. Could it be that Roger's will or spirit was reincarnated in Luffy? Could there be someone that acts just like Rayleigh's first friend? In this world run by the government, along with a layer of fear that their plans are truly despicable, I'm getting the sense that Rayleigh wants to live long enough to see if Luffy can break the rule of the government and become a more permanent pirate king. That's why I'm stating that I feel like he is an observer, someone who would want to see how events play out. That way, when Luffy does become the Pirate King and all is said and done, I want to see a somber but meaningful death. We can have an aged Rayleigh near the end of his life saying something like, "I'm glad I could bet on you, Luffy. I got to see what the next Pirate King can do. You've given this old man a reason to keep going, to see how this world I learned so much about could change or be finally free. I'm forever in your debt, but if you don't mind, I want to see my old friend again. Letting go, we can see Rayleigh die with a smile as he goes back to his friend that started it all, Roger. Throughout the story, we have seen how much Roger means to Rayleigh. Their friendship, while never shown too much detail, has all the implications behind it that it was something truly special. This is why I'm wishing for his death. I cannot think of any way for Rayleigh to exit the story other than him peacefully leaving the mortal coil to reunite with his best friend and share everything that's happened. I could even see an epilogue panel where Roger and Rayleigh are drinking at a location similar to where they first met, but as mature spirits, reflecting over the water about the lives they had and the lives affected by the next Pirate King. Let Rayleigh rest after the story is done. He's been retired as the Dark King for a long time, but even though he certainly has the power to keep going, I believe that his death would be a fulfillment to his character and to the story. A true passing of the torch to the next generation. That way he can leave and rest in peace. And you know what? While we're on character deaths, let's go with one more, because I am a terrible monster. Good news though, this is the only other slot on here that will focus on a specific character's death. So with that being said, let's talk about Smoker. Unfortunately, he won't be able to go in peace per se on my list, but that doesn't mean I want to see him fall so easily. In my headcanon, I have been thinking that the only reason Oda made Smoker into a timeskip character that faces nothing but loss is that when the time comes for his most defining moment, Smoker can show a sort of redemption to everyone. However, that redemption will still be a loss in my mind. To go into detail, I've labeled this slot number 9, Smoker's Final Stand. Like I mentioned at the start of all this, some of these moments on my list are going to focus on what I would like to be key events during this final war arc that we've been teased so much about over the years. For Smoker's Final Stand, however, I would like to see this before the Great War starts. For the sake of a hypothetical timeline, let's just assume that Wano ends with the defeat and or deaths of Big Mom and Kaido. A lot of people from Wano, Supernovas included, and allies from around the world joined Luffy's side, and because of that, well, the side of pirates just got a lot more united and stronger. It could be to the point where now the Marines have to take action. I believe the final war will center around the full force of the Marines and the government against Luffy and all of his allies made since his journey began. And for the Marines, this final clash would be to wipe the majority of the United Pirates out once and for all. It's a scenario that Akainu would take any day of the week. And in this daydream timeline, that is exactly what he does. To build up this final struggle, Akainu recalls all the Marines to HQ. This of course brings Smoker into the fray. At this grand meeting, Akainu would create a plan to isolate the pirates, to make sure they have no home or base to retreat to have this battlefield be the final destination for all pirates. Akainu would then point out the towns, the islands, the kingdoms, where piracy reigned supreme or had too much influence. He would then command that these places, these safe havens for pirates, be buster called and exterminated after the meeting, repeating the tragedy of Ohara, a catastrophic massacre that was also headed up by Akainu in his early Marine days. To show how far-reaching this extermination campaign could be, one of the targets shown could be Dawn Island, Luffy's birthplace. This was where Luffy and Ace, two infamous pirates, began their pirate days. And even though they aren't pirates, Sabo and Dragon came from this place too, and they are just as much of a threat to Akainu. Many places like Dawn Island could then be shown, revealing that Akainu is truly demanding a genocide unprecedented in its scale, a destruction of countless innocent lives to ensure that piracy is dead, that justice is the absolute force. Akainu then demands absolute loyalty, for if anyone backs out, they would be considered a traitor. We know that Smoker has a sense of morality that has been explored. We know that he cares for truth and has had a bone to pick with the government ways for a while now. So, I think we know what's gonna happen next.
Dead men tell, now tale.
Smoker could then speak out, calling this plan absurd. Nothing would please Smoker more than to capture Straw Hat and his allies, but he's not about to throw his morality away or call these targets necessary losses for the sake of justice. He is above this. The Marines should be above this. There have to be limits. It could be a more mature callback to Kobe's speech at Marineford before he was out for the count. Akainu attacks, and Smoker fights back. During this battle, we can explore the motivations of Akainu, how he can justify this course of action out of fear and anger, but we can also explore the conviction of Smoker, recapping all that's happened to him. This could be used to Akainu's favor though, as he can use Smoker's past failures to call him out. Hell, in a way, it could call us fans out for remembering and poking fun at Smoker's losing streak. Now, even though there's really no contest that Akainu is gonna win, that doesn't mean Smoker is completely defenseless. Thanks to his Devil Fruit and Jit, he can get some blows in on Akainu. This final stand should show Smoker's determination to do the right thing the right way, even if it costs him his life. That way, when all is said and done, Smoker can be called the greatest example of a Marine, one who truly embodied the principles of justice and honor. But we have to get through his death first. Akainu, for his finishing blow, can recreate his attack on Ace by shoving a magma fist through Smoker, and then say something like, "Don't think you're getting a burial of any kind. Those who I face, the enemies and cowards that defy my justice, nothing but destruction is in store for them." In brutal fashion, Akainu can then use his magma to melt Smoker into nothing. But with one last statement, Smoker can shout something like, "At least I died with my spine still intact. Screw you, your bosses, and anyone who really thinks that this is what we signed up for. Grow a backbone and do things the right way, the Marine way." With these final words, Smoker is erased, leaving only behind his Jit. Akainu could then toss it aside in front of a stunned and terrified crowd, saying that this weapon was in the possession of a traitor. But it was also the only good thing associated with him. Akainu can then state something like, "I don't care who gets this weapon, but if you take that weapon off the ground, you better be damn sure it's for my justice." As Akainu leaves, we could have the Jit land in front of the only other Marine who we know has a heart, Kobe. In a way, Kobe could inherit Smoker's will, or help enforce it. In his mind, Kobe could think something like, "Yeah, I can use this weapon for the right side." And that's where this moment ends. Even though this would be another loss for Smoker, I think it would be a good way for his arc to end. I think that a betrayal of the government is inevitable for him, but at least with this moment, Smoker still does it on his own terms, standing up against the wrong side of justice and inspiring others to follow the right path, instead of the howls of a mad, hellish hound. Alright, now this next scenario I think would be like a Kingdom Hearts plot twist. Something that no one saw coming, but of course it can happen, and it's all thanks to the powers of darkness. With that segue, let's talk about number 8. Blackbeard discovers Laugh Tale first. This just might be the most controversial thing I put on here. Luffy should be the one that finds One Piece, that's what makes him the Pirate King, right? Otherwise, what was the point of the adventure? Here's the thing though, unless Blackbeard actually kills Shanks like many theorized, I can't see another alternative for Blackbeard cementing his power play as the final villain, or in my case, the final or ultimate pirates for the Straw Hats to face. That's why I wanted someone else to at least get to Laugh Tale first to provide this climactic twist and situation for everyone. However, that being said, I don't think Blackbeard will actually get to the One Piece itself first. That's pretty much reserved for Luffy, and to be honest, for years now, I always thought that the final battle between these two would take place right outside the gate or passage of the One Piece. A climactic battle with the ultimate treasure just beyond their reach. Though this battle isn't what I want to focus on. That will be another video, so let's backtrack to my first fanfic storyline. How would Blackbeard find the key to Laugh Tale first? Well, like last time, for simplicity's sake, let's just assume that Luffy finds all 4 road poneglyphs and the location of Laugh Tale is about to be revealed by Robin. Whether this happens before or after the final war isn't really relevant for this moment right now. However, just before the translation is done by Robin, a sudden quake is heard in the distance. Moments later, a tidal wave is seen in the background. Riding it is Blackbeard and all of his forces, arriving to ambush the Straw Hats and any of their allies. The tidal wave would then crash down, separating and depowering everyone, While members like Jinbei and Sanji rescue their crewmates and anyone else hit by the wave, a massive attack ensues. With everyone separated, Blackbeard, his commanders, and his sheer number of pirates on his side launch an all-out attack as the higher-ups head towards the Sunny. Luffy, stunned at this course of action, tries his best to fight off Blackbeard and his men, only to be knocked aside again and again by the ambitious Yonko. When Blackbeard gets close enough to the Sunny, he uses his Devil Fruit power to pull in Nico Robin. He would then reveal that all of this was meant to take Robin away in the chaos, so that he could get the information on Laugh-Tale first. As Blackbeard claims his prize, he could say something like, "Thanks for all your help, Straw Hat. You saved me a lot of time and a lot of my friends. Could you imagine if I had to take on the other Yonko and the government just to get my hands on some information about an island? That's suicide! But I guess you were like your brother, Straw Hat, defiant to the very end." With that final laugh, Blackbeard takes Robin away, and threatens that even though she wouldn't say where Laugh-Tale is, Blackbeard has crewmates that will get her to reveal anything. Blackbeard's forces depart, leaving a disaster behind. Each of the Straw Hats would be beaten and broken by the surprise attack, and all the while, Luffy is looking in absolute disbelief. Robin has been taken, again, and Luffy's entire adventure, this years-long journey, was just robbed by his greatest enemy, the one person who has been antagonistic to Luffy since the start of the Skypiea saga. This moment fits Blackbeard as well. He always has some scheme up his sleeve, and he's honestly the most realistic pirate in this series. For him to come in and ruin everything by grand theft just fits his description and can really up the stakes as making Blackbeard the final big bad of the series. At least, that's what I'm hoping what happens. I won't mind too much if Akainu or even Im-sama are the final bosses at the end, but I feel like Blackbeard deserves the mantle. Give the man another moment in devastating fashion. That's all I can ask for right now. This moment can end with Blackbeard finding out where Laugh-Tale is, screaming in joy about how he can finally take the throne of the world. Though to end this on a positive note, here's Blackbeard getting his ass handed to him in Pirate Warriors 2. There we go, and while we're on some semblance of positivity, let's move on to the next slot, which might get me into some trouble again. But without further ado, number 7, Sanji and Puddin rule Whole Cake Island. I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but Sanji and Puddin, when the latter is not acting like a bipolar mess bent on backstabbing and slaughter, make a good couple. They have many things in common, and I could honestly see them make it to a legit marriage. That event right there is what I want to talk about. With the end of One Piece, I see a lot of speculation and theories that suggest that the Straw Hats will stay on the seas forever after the story is over. That way, the adventure can always continue. Personally, I'm not a fan of that choice in story. This may be the adventure of a lifetime, but like I was saying with Rayleigh, things need to end. Once this colossal odyssey is finished, where do Luffy friends go? Well, I want them to do their own thing. We'll talk about Luffy later, but Zoro could find a home in Wano, Usopp goes back to his hometown of Legend, stuff like that. But my favorite scenario would be Sanji's. He could go back to the Bear Tea, but when there's a series of islands focused entirely on food that's helped being run by a woman that wants to plow Sanji like dough, the choice of where he could call home seems a bit more clear to me. In this situation, I'm going with my headcanon that most of, if not all, the combat-focused Big Mom pirates join up in Wano with Kaido. So Parasparrow, Oven, Smoothie, Cracker, Bobbin, Satan, the list goes on. But where does that leave Whole Cake Island in terms of who's running the territory? I'd like to think that Puddin would make a good temp ruler, due to the people likely taking her side after the most tragic wedding in their country's history. She doesn't even have to be called a leader, just a stand-in. Same thing could be said with Katakuri. All the heavy firepower can go with Big Mom, but someone very capable should be left behind to make sure that no other Yonko gets the wrong idea. Katakuri would then make the perfect choice and defense. So when the Big Mom pirates fall and die or whatever, that suddenly leaves Whole Cake Island in a bit of a pickle. But that's when Sanji, Feigned Prince, and one of the monster trio of the Straw Hats enters the fray. After their final adventure, Sanji could return to Puddin, step in as a true husband, and the two could change Whole Cake for the better. No more does it have to be a pirate's territory. It could be transformed into a true paradise for anyone that likes food. Sanji's dream is the all blue, so maybe once he discovers that, he can use what he learned to make Whole Cake the ultimate treat for any passing ship. Like with Dressrosa, there doesn't need to be a lingering sense of fear and corruption anymore. It would be a great change of pace for the new world if a former Yonko's territory can be updated to incorporate the right person's dream, rather than depend on the cannibalistic mind of an evil witch. Okay, there is no easy way to transition to this, but since we're talking about the replacement of Big Mom in a way, let's take that to a broader scope. If the Yonko, meaning Blackbeard, Kaido, and Big Mom, are going to be defeated as a power structure, I would like to see either new Yonko fill in the shoes or have some new system of piracy in check. For an example, in the film Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, there is a group called the Brethren Court. They are made up of the 9 pirate lords, so they control all of piracy. What if we had something like that at the end of One Piece? I think it's safe to say that piracy won't die after the story is over, but it can transform for the better. Basically, if I wanted to have 4 characters take over the reins of pirates, they would be Buggy, Law, Shanks, and Kid. I think I just dug myself a grave here, but I think these 4 would be the best leaders, or Yonkos, in a post-One Piece world. Let's start with Buggy. Since he's Oda's favorite character, I'm willing to bet that he's going to get some special treatment at the end of the story. I feel like he's going to get another title of power thrown his way, and what better title than Yonko? Through some wacky events or circumstances, come the end of the story, I want to bet my copies of the Pirate Warrior series that somehow, some way, Buggy gets a lot of the credit for the takedown of the Marines or the government. He could be the most popular pirate around after the final war and earns that leadership position by reputation alone. Thankfully, he isn't too dangerous despite his numerous henchmen. They're like Team Skull from Pokemon Sun and Moon. They could definitely be threatening, but they're ultimately harmless. Next up, Trafalgar Law. Again, I feel like I'm in the minority here, but I don't think that Law is going to die at the end of One Piece. Even though his Devil Fruit is practically asking for a self-sacrifice, I think Law is going to make it. I think that through Chopper, there'll be a way to save Law in the event he uses that transfer power of his. That way, in a sense, Chopper earns that world's best doctor title in the process. Anyway, I think Law would be a leader of the pirate world because really most of this post-time skip plot is because of him. Dethroning Doflamingo, the humiliation of Big Mom, the eventual defeat of Kaido, and potentially more are all a direct result of Law siding with Luffy. Since his return in Punk Hazard, we've been following a plan that even though it's been focused on taking down Doflamingo and Kaido, the ambition of Law is soon going to turn into the greatest removal of power in the One Piece world, aside from when the government is eventually defeated. Having a mind like Law, hell, having just a person like Law be considered a leader among pirates is a good idea to me. It was his thinking that removed the most dangerous pirates of the previous era, so why let that mindset and character go to waste? The world could learn a lot through Law, and after seeing his backstory along with Corazon's death, I think he's destined to go the distance. Up next, Shanks. You can't have a new set of Yonko without considering what to do with this legend. I want him included because, first off, it's Shanks. He has been trying to save the world numerous times, talking to Whitebeard, ended the Summit War, confronting the Garose. Everything that Shanks has done has been for the overall betterment of the world. Now I know what you're thinking, what about Shanks versus Blackbeard? Shouldn't we have that giant fight happen? In my fantasy, I feel like Shanks is going to fight Blackbeard because everyone's been expecting that for a while now. However, at the end of their duel, even though Blackbeard would probably win with those 2 Devil Fruits at his side, I feel like Shanks would make it out alive. Heavily wounded to the point he can't fight anymore, but alive. Hell, to seal the deal, why not make Shanks lose his other arm? It's not like Shanks is really losing that much, he still has his hockey lightning for God's sake. But I don't think his power and mindset are going to waste. He still has a fair amount of years left in his life. I think having his influential voice as a new leader would be fantastic to make sure no one in the world gets too strong ever again. The world doesn't need another Blackbeard or another world government. And then finally, Kid. Even though Kid acts like a solo act, I believe he'll learn to be a team player at the end of Wano. No matter what happens from here to the end, he'll be his renegade self, but I'm willing to bet that he will finally understand that he has limits, that he can be a leader of pirates in his own way. In fact, with a character, or really personality like Kid's, he could be sort of a gatekeeper for new pirates and threats as they try to make a name for themselves. He would be the next great legend that people wouldn't dare to cross. Some of this links to the parallel that many believe that Kid is the next Whitebeard to Luffy's Roger, and while I personally don't like the repeated timeline theory as a whole, I still like some aspects of it. With an ambition like Kid's, I think it's only a matter of time before he earns that title. In terms of working with the other pirates or Yonkos in this matter, he would be the equivalent of Batman in the Justice League.
You want me to what?
Turn yourself over into U.S. custody, along with the rest of us.
I don't have to do anything. I'm a part-timer, remember?
And that's who I think the pirate world would most benefit from after Luffy's adventure. These 4 characters can make a difference. That, and seeing meetings between these characters in these new positions of power would offer a lot in terms of character, comedy, a sense of accomplishment, you name it. And that took quite a long time to cover, so let's take a quick break. I'm going to grab a water, so I'll see you all in just a moment. Thankfully, this next moment is going to be short and sweet. Why? Because my next little dream for One Piece has to do with a bit of revenge. You know the saying, right? That revenge is a dish best served cold? Well, in this situation, it's going to be served hot. Boiling hot. Let's paint a picture. I think it's implied that Luffy is going to face off against Akainu for a one-on-one, avenging Ace and the scores of other people horrifically murdered by the Fleet Admiral. That being said, I don't think Luffy can beat Akainu in said one-on-one. This Marine fought Alchemist for 10 days. Oda has stated that One Piece would be done in a year if Akainu was the main character. He fought and survived the wrath of Whitebeard and so many other pirates. He's like an angrier Kaido, where no matter how much you throw at this hellish hound, he just gets back up. But unlike Kaido, where the Dragon Yonko just shrugs off blows, Akainu comes back literally fuming, destroying all in his path. So when Luffy faces off against Akainu, I can see a scenario where Luffy tries his best, he gets some really good blows in, but Akainu just won't fall down. However, before Akainu has a chance to finish what he started, he is suddenly struck from an outside source. This could be anyone, a random flying slash from Zoro, a sneak attack from Robin, anyone, I don't care. The point is that Akainu is then surrounded by everyone. In this final war that is being built up by Oda, I want to see a situation where Luffy's side is victorious against the majority of Marines. All that remains in terms of headliners is Akainu. He's been responsible for so much death and destruction over the years, so I think some payback is in order. Thanks to injuries made by Luffy, Akainu wouldn't be able to hold his own against every attack made by everyone. This would be the equivalent of the Avengers making a triumphant stand against Thanos, where the Titan can't do anything, and it would be so cathartic seeing him fall in battle once and for all. Have him sliced by the red scabbards, have Lawshambo cannonballs inside his stomach and just let them go off. Have him crushed by a giant hailstorm of metal made by Kid. Have each Straw Hat, especially Robin, deal a good blow as a token of payback for making Luffy suffer at Ace's death. This moment can be significant, the day where the most powerful Marine is taken down, symbolizing that the Marines and this warped view on justice is about to be taken down by the hands of not only pirates, but people that rightfully want the world to change. Everyone gets a shot on Akainu. Everyone deserves to deal some blow. Not much else to say here, but I really hope something like this happens. Make Akainu taste some real flames of vengeance. Next up is another short moment, and this is a moment that may be the most far-fetched here, but let's take a quick history lesson. Once upon a time, an arch villain named Enel went to the moon, found a race of moon people, and became their god. The end. Ever since then, it's been up in the air whether Enel would return. Some believe he should come back because the potential would be great. while others think he's found a nice little home on the moon. I, however, agree with those that say he should come back because I also agree that there's a lot of potential. Imagine Enel coming back to the planet with this chibi race of moon people and declaring in his egotistical glory that he will rule the world to expand his kingdom. However, this isn't exactly what I want to highlight. While I want Enel to come back, there's a certain thing I want to see him do, and that leads to our next slot. Number 4. Enel destroys the Celestial Dragons. How would this work? Let's do another what-if scenario. So when this final war comes, there's an implication that the Celestial Dragons will finally be dethroned. They will face the righteous justice of the people and suffer brutal yet cathartic deaths. The karma these Celestials will receive is something I'm looking forward to a lot. But I do think there's room for a little subversion. While I would love to see everyone get a shot on the Celestial Dragons just like with the Kainu, I do think that Enel coming back to the world all upstyle with balloons would be an absolute treat. He could come floating back down and declare that the rightful god has returned, claiming that he deserves this new heaven his eyes gaze upon. That heaven being Meridiem. After that declaration, all the Celestials could simply go, shoot him, and then something like this can happen. Yes, the world nobles deserve to be torn apart, but I think it would be equally cathartic, if not even better, if these Celestials meet their end by someone whose ego and power actually exceed them in every degree. To our knowledge, there are no Devil Fruit users among these people. Enel could simply go, give me your land. No. That's it, right there, one Celestial down.
Everyone else to go.
And it would be fitting since these demonic pieces of trash would be struck down by lightning, a power symbolic of the heavens themselves. Even if an admiral is called in to help deal with the situation, Enel can give them a run for their money. I mean, there isn't a rubber boy that can stop him this time. I think there's potential for Enel to return. I only hope it's something to this degree where he just destroys the closest competition to ego he'll ever receive. Could Enel pose a threat to Luffy himself nowadays? Probably not, but that doesn't mean he can't have some role to play. And if it's anything like I mentioned, it would be glorious. Alright, we're getting close to the end. 3 more slots to go. To start off this point, I want to ask if anyone loved watching the group fights of this series. Mainly Oars versus the Straw Hats, or Zoro and Elisabello tag team in Pika. Anytime a tag team happens, I'm all over that. I know that one-on-one duels are a shonen staple, just ask Yu Yu Hakusho, the absolute master of these, but whenever I see a group fight, they are a breath of fresh air. And like I said several times before, I think we can afford some of these in this final war. If I can say that anything on here would be remotely accurate if the time came, it would be that group fights would make a comeback and have a lot more focus this time around. And the group fight that I want to see the most come this final war is number 3, the Supernovas versus the Garose and Im-sama. If there's been a theme that I loved watching develop since the Sabaody arc, it was the rise of the worst generation and the government's reaction to them. When I first saw the Supernovas, I thought they would just be random side characters, people that would have no relevance in the story. But since the New World, we've been getting more and more information and importance from them. Law was the first piece of the puzzle in Punk Hazard, followed by Beijing and Yaruj at Whole Cake Island. Bonnie was at the Reverie, and everyone else but Blackbeard is at Wano. Even though everyone seems to be on opposing sides, I think that all of them, except Blackbeard of course, will eventually join forces. I would love to see this against the big fight against Kaido, but I want to see this all-out team fight against the Garose and potentially Im-sama. I still think that the Garose are nothing to scoff at. They might have some interesting powers to display, and I think they would make a great climactic duel against the Supernovas. If there's been a recurring theme on my list here, it's that the system of the world government, the era itself, needs to change. The next generation needs to step up to help the world move forward, even if those responsible are pirates. I think the best way to show that is this all or nothing group clash. The Supernovas versus the Gorosei can be the highlight, the main event of this final war. How would the fights themselves go? I think it could be a 2 versus 1 situation. For example, Law and Urouge can take on the man with the sword, Drake and Beijing could fight the Elder with the Mega Beard, and so on and so forth. During this great battle, we could explore motivations, purpose, get some real answers about the Gorosei, while of course saving the big clash with Im-sama against Luffy. I think having these team fights would be a great way to finish off the Gorosei, a group of villains that have been present ever since the aftermath of the Alabasta arc. It can go a long way to show just how much progress everyone has made. It's actually rather hard to go more into detail because we know a lot about the Supernovas, but still nothing about the Gorosei. Though honestly, that just adds to the excitement. Let the Supernovas finally reach the group that wanted them dead since the start and show off what I think would be one of, if not the most unique fight in the series. Asking for a lot here, I know, but this kind of event is something I really want to see. Next up on my list is another short and yet maybe sweet moment. There really isn't a segue I can use this time around, so let's just go into it. Number 2. Garp confronts and/or forgives Dragon. When it comes to Garp and Dragon, I see a lot of conversations about power levels, how they would interact with Luffy nowadays, and there's quite some speculation on how they're going to die. These are all interesting storylines, but I want to see Garp and Dragon meet each other. We don't know how long it's been since this father and son have met, but it's a reunion I desperately want to see. Oda could simply play this off as, "Hey dad, hi son, the end." It would match how Garp first introduced Dragon to Luffy, where the Vice Admiral casually goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, your dad is a terrorist." However, I think there's a lot of room for emotional development. Things have changed. Ace was killed by a Marine. Every day that passes is another day where the way of the Marines or the control of the government slowly decays inch by inch. Garp can still be a Marine fighting for justice, but the point I want to make is that when these two do meet again, there could be at least a common understanding. Garp can mention that he knows why Dragon is fighting, why he's committed to opposing the strongest force in the world. I imagine their separation was quite painful for Garp since his son is a polar opposite in terms of beliefs. It's not confirmed, but that's why I believe Garp was so persistent to make Ace and Luffy Marines, so that they don't turn out like his son. But again, I think there's room for understanding between these two characters, a chance to converse and a chance to forgive. Garp could say something like, "I don't like what you're doing. Never have, never will. But I can understand why. I lost my family to this cause before. I don't want to go through that again with my only son." I think this potential moment could be very hard-hitting. The only reason I'm not commentating on Dragon's side is because we still don't know too much about him yet, though I can imagine that he might tear up just a smidge and pass it off as, "I don't need your pity, Dad. But thanks. When my work is done, I'll try to visit home." This doesn't have to be a lengthy moment, but I think the emotional payoff of the senior members of the Monkey family meeting once again is too good to pass up. Now, here we are. Number 1. To be honest, I think this little dream of mine is shared quite often with the One Piece community, but I want to throw my hat in there. That being said, let's talk about final battles. If you watched my favorite Naruto moments, you may remember that I called Naruto vs Sasuke a perfect final battle. Regardless of my issues towards a good chunk of the story, I'll always stand by what I said about Naruto vs Sasuke. It was something that tied up the entire story and used every trick in its arsenal to be the best conclusion to a series it could possibly be. I even stated that I was worried that One Piece wouldn't be able to live up to expectations for its final battle. I'm sure it will be satisfying, but will it be something worthy of a 20+ year story? Like I said at the start, the ending is crucial. It's what everything has been building towards, and with the One Piece fanbase, it's something that everyone wants to be in a league of its own. So what do I think the absolute last battle would be after the final war? Well, let's talk about Luffy and Kobe. For me, One Piece should end with Luffy and Kobe having one last face-off, the fulfillment of a promise made decades ago. I truly don't understand the hate against Kobe. The man was trained by Garp, and it shows. Whenever he's on screen, of course. Point is, when we see Kobe, we see improvement. Was he always on Luffy's level? Not exactly, but there's progress. And that's what I think would make One Piece's end so interesting. Let's paint one more picture. At the end of the story, in my headcanon, the world government is gone. The Marines are in a new system that truly fights for the people. Piracy is a booming lifestyle, but it's redefined as mentioned before in previous slots. Kobe could be a key figurehead for the new Marine, since he made a stand to its former leader all those years ago at Marineford. And with his heroic accents, he would make a great candidate. All that's left to do is to take on the Pirate King. Luffy, hopefully more mature here at the end, knows that Kobe needs to at least attempt his job before the two can end this pirate and marine struggle for good. Like with Naruto vs Sasuke, you could have this fight show every trick these two have learned since their journeys began. A nostalgia reel, if you will. We could see Luffy showing off all his attacks and going through the gears while Kobe goes through the skills of Luffy's enemies. That way, both sides of the story are covered. You have CP9's moves, Haki, hell, maybe Kobe has his own version of Garp's fist. And of course, like I said with Smoker's last stand, Kobe could use Smoker's weapon to even out the playing field. And this fight, though fierce, could still have elements of a deep friendship. When Roger and Whitebeard clashed, they smiled. I think the same can go for Luffy and Kobe. One last showdown so that their old era can be put to rest and they can go on their own adventures from there. Will this be the fiercest battle of the series? Probably not. It'd be absolutely outstanding if it was though. Luffy vs Kobe has the potential to end the story as it began, the meeting of a simple pirate and a simple man of justice. When the battle ends, in most likely Luffy's favor, he can say something like, "You're not weak anymore, Kobe. Awesome. I think everyone is in good hands now." With a smile and laugh, the two go their separate ways. A lot of people are theorizing that Luffy's going to die, but to no one's surprise, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't believe Luffy should share the same fate as Roger, even if they are very similar. Let Luffy have his own ending. And that is everything I have to say. Do you like anything I've mentioned so far? Anything you would want changed or any ideas of your own? Share them down below. There's so many potential roads for this story, and like I mentioned at the beginning, we won't have too much longer before it all ends. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see all of you legends later. Take care.